I feel security should be a part of company strategy, whether there is AI or not AI in the picture, right? There has been a time in the past when AI was not used as heavily. Security had a seat at the table. However, that was not the most prominent thing because the risks that we were seeing were pretty common. However, with AI, the risk has shifted a lot towards privacy, identity, and those issues have again started coming up, especially when we are talking about the AI agents and MCP servers, and when we are actually like expanding beyond just traditional LLM models and trying to get into more autonomous feature of using AI, right?
Welcome to Season 4 of The Elephant in AppSec, the podcast to explore, challenge, and boldly face the AppSec elephants in the room. I'm Alexandra, your host, AppSec enthusiast, and growth manager at Escape. Today, I am joined by Amol Deshpande, seasoned security engineer currently at Stripe, where he focuses on building secure systems at massive scale. With a background spanning product security and pen testing at companies like Salesforce, Splunk, and Early Warning, Amol brings deep hands-on experience in securing complex real-world platforms. He's also been a HackMIT judge and a long-time CTF competitor at DEF CON, giving him a very practical view of modern security challenges. In this episode, we cover whether security must now belong in every AI strategy meeting and how to embed it into AI development from the outset. We also touch on how privacy concerns will only grow as agents are trained on sensitive data and why human oversight is essential for critical AI operations. If you enjoy this podcast, don't forget to subscribe and follow it on your favorite podcasting app or YouTube. It's the best way to avoid missing future episodes. And with that, get ready to hear Amol's opinions. Dive right in. Hi, Amol. I'm super excited to have you on the Elephant and AppSec podcast together with me. I think our recording is also quite timely. There were a lot of big announcements, recently on the AppSec side with a completely different new top 10, that came out. Every week, almost there is a new AI thing as well, that pops up. A new tool, a new open source project, a new guideline. And I think it's become so central to product development, to application development, to even like business strategy. There are, conversations that go on so many different levels in each organizations about it. So we can't stop talking about it. And large orgs, it starts at the kind of brainstorming stage. And if people want to introduce AI in their orgs, there is discussion on what is going to be the strategy with it, what is the goal that it's going to achieve. Do you think actually security teams should be, or someone representing security should be a part of this, initial strategy meeting? Because it's where everything, starts.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. First of all, I know it's been a while since we were trying to figure out like a common time where we could do this. And thank you for being patient while we could find a common time. And as you mentioned, it's been a week full of announcements. It's been a year full of announcements, and it's been last 3 years
Yeah.
full of announcements. I think since ChatGPT came, and it became like a most widespread thing, there have been announcements pretty much every day or not, if not every week, right? So it's been
Yeah.
it's been an eventful few years, I would say. And guess what? Like security, which used to be interesting, is now becoming more interesting because there are a lot of new attack vectors, a lot of new risk areas that are emerging, and is kind of learning about it. And we all are learning at the same time, which makes it even more exciting because we all are trying to figure out solutions to that, and it's sort of a collective effort to to change the landscape of AI and AI security. So I'm really excited here to talk about how AI affects security and how security can affect AI.
Yeah, I think it's definitely, as you mentioned, a big conversation because now even AI tools, like OpenAI, builds their own security tools. I think the same was for Google, a former DeepMind. There who also professional who also focused on security. So more and more, big organizations, well-known organizations are also building their security tool. Did you have an opportunity to actually see that security is being incorporated right at the start when you build
Yeah. So I'm really glad and I'm grateful that these big organizations who are investing into improving the AI security actually are sharing some part of their work with the world where everyone can potentially leverage it and incorporate into their strategy. So that is really great. So that it's like, it's a truly community slash like collective effort, as I mentioned, to improve AI security. And as like to your question, I feel security should be a part of company strategy, whether there is AI or not AI in the picture, right? So there has been a time in the past where AI, when AI was not used as heavily as it is used today, security was had a seat at the table. However, that was not like a most prominent thing, because the risks that we were seeing were pretty common, and there were like similar risks that we were seeing. There were like 0 days that used to come every now and then, which the entire community used to respond to. However, with AI, the risk has shifted a lot towards privacy, identity, and those issues have again started coming up, especially when we are talking about the AI agents and MCP servers, and when we are actually like expanding beyond just traditional LLM models and trying to get into more autonomous feature of using AI, right? So yes, security should definitely be a starting point in the brainstorming slash conceptualization phase, also in the overall strategy of the organization. And that helps the organization stay on track with respect to the risks that are associated with their strategy for the short or long term, and also take necessary actions, mostly proactively, so that the risks are mitigated and the trust that the organization is trying to instill with its consumer is intact. It also affects the business reputation of the materialistic goal of the organization, as well as the reputation of the organizations. Yes, the security again should definitely be a part of this.
Yeah, security should be a part of organization. As you mentioned, AI agents, model context protocol. There are so many technologies that basically that appeared, this year, and also security professionals must keep up and try to understand how this technology works, how this
Yes.
technology can be secured, what are the different risks. Today, I just had a conversation about someone that is a very public speaker, and he told me like, for me in my next speech, I'll try to also push people to kind of come up with admit if they don't understand the technology. And I think sometimes it is actually very hard for everyone to understand each technology, and it might take time. How would you recommend someone to actually keep learning, about these new technologies, like let's say AI agents, MCPs, and understand better how it can be broken down and how it can be attacked?
Yes. So I will start with learning, right? And it's been my own journey as well. Because everyone, when AI was released, and by AI, I'm like, referring to large language models, particularly ChatGPT in late 2022, if I'm not wrong. Everyone was kind of new to the concept of what, the general purpose AI would be. AI has been there for years, and there were organizations, universities, etc., investing into the research around AI. However, using AI firsthand actually started like last few years, right? And we are still in the phase of using large language models essentially for performing jobs, and the AI agents are also powered by the similar kind of LLM models. So for me personally, how I try to approach this is that if I learn about a new technology, right, and the approach could be different for everyone, but I'm just like trying to share how it works for me. So if there's a new technology that comes in, and if I learn about it, I do not feel comfortable until I try it. Right. So even if like the ChatGPT, when it was released, everyone knew, okay, this is going to be the new next big thing, or the new
For
buzzword of
sure.
the round. But unless you go and you try it, you don't necessarily understand the capabilities of it, right? And as a general purpose consumer, the capabilities are endless, right? Like it can help you do some mundane tasks. It can help you organize a lot of your schedule, for example, or it can provide like concise response to really vague queries that you may have, right? So those are like the general purpose things. But when you're actually dealing with using LLMs or AI within the organization, the use might become a little bit more technical, where you're thinking about like how accurate the model is, right? Like what the hallucination looks like, and what are the use cases where the AI could actually help increase the productivity, right? But for me, reading about it is like just the first part of it, or like just an entry door into the world of the newer technology. However, trying it, or actually like writing the like trying to write the hello world of LLM, right? So the hello
Yeah.
world is like, for those who don't know, it's like the first program that you always write when you start learning
I
computer programming.
hope so. Hope people who listen know, because otherwise it's a problem.
Yes, and I started learning programming when LLMs or vibe coding did not exist. So I naturally started from Hello World. Now the things
Me
might
too.
change, and probably people might start at a different stage. However, yeah, so I like starting from scratch essentially. Unless I get my hands dirty, I do not feel comfortable with trying to tinker with the technology to the point where I can improve it. And in order to learn, I feel I will encourage everyone who's starting into this particular area, like, of using AI or using AI for security or doing security for AI, is to first understand what AI does, right? And just understand the capabilities of it. Because once you know the scope of where the AI can be used, you can then think about like how security can either affect AI or how it can be used to secure certain use cases, right? And once you start there, you start probably understand like the areas where it's either sparks your curiosity, or it actually you feel that, okay, there are certain roadblocks here that we need to figure out, right? So those are the areas where you can either dive down and or seek external help, or try to do more research into those areas, right? And that's where like reading the blog posts, or referring to the podcast like yours, right? Or a lot more other resources that are currently being shared by a lot of AI influencers across the world, right? And there's some definitely useful information out there. I try to learn about it, synthesize that information, and then check whether you could use that information in any of the use cases that you're considering, right? So it's kind of like a just read about it, try it, then read more about it, and then again try it. So it's kind of like a cycle, right? Like where you read, you try, you read more, then you hit a wall, and then you can just like read more about it and then keep trying. And it's
Yeah.
just that keeping the curiosity alive, I feel, will definitely take us to the new levels in this new technology. And I would highly encourage everyone to, if they haven't tried yet, which I believe might not be the case, they might have come across AI here and there, but if you haven't come across it, please go out, try it, and share whatever you learn so that everyone is kind of benefiting.
What's the most exciting AI-based project that you've tried recently?
So yeah, I will tell you two, right? So one in my professional life and one in my personal life.
Okay.
In my professional life, I have tried MCP, and I was blown away because it solves so many use cases, and it actually gives you an opportunity to build kind of a heterogeneous system with AI. So the underlying AI is, of course, like, the AI agent that performs certain operations, but now you have MCP protocol to connect to a lot more APIs, diverse APIs, to perform an operation that involves like different kind of processing of data. So it could like perform various kind of API operations. So that protocol in general actually intrigued me, and I started learning more about it. But I truly felt that that was a good step forward in terms of like how AI could be more useful than just like being a large language model. In my personal life, I was just tinkering with certain image generation, video generation AI software.
Sora?
Sora, yes. Started with that, and then I was like, what are the possibilities of it? And I actually went and I wrote like script to create reels, and I actually created a reel from using AI. I was like, the thing that I wanted to understand is like how good or how relevant of the imagery is in those reels when the script is like kind of vague, right? So, for example, if I'm trying to tell this particular AI application that, hey, I want to create a reel of visiting London, and I want to explore the food places in it, and just create a knowledgeable reel sharing my experience of visiting London. it says only one specific thing that, hey, I want to visit London and I want to explore food places, but it does not tell you anything about the cuisine that you want to try or the time of the year that you're going to visit, or any specific area of London that you're targeting. So I wanted to check like how relevant of a reel that it can create out of that, because it's kind of a vague instruction to it. Actually created a surprisingly good quality reel out of it. And it's an Instagram reel. I never posted it. However, if someone wants to be an influencer, now it's probably the right time, or probably an easier time to become one, because now you have so many tools at your hand to, increase the productivity. So those are the two places where I have felt that, hey, the AI is actually making the lives easier. And then ChatGPT is, of course, like, sort of my right hand at this point, and asking like random questions to it, or trying to build itineraries for my upcoming trips, or trying to if I see something and I don't understand what it is, I just click a picture, put that on any LLM provider. ChatGPT is just being preferable to just ask like, hey, what this is, right? Like I see there's a spot on the house plant I have. I'll just click and try to get the information there. And I don't know like what outfit would go with my suit that I have. Like
Okay.
hey, it's my personal styling assistant as well. So as I said before, the possibilities are endless there.
Yeah, I think the possibilities are endless. There is some danger that comes with it, because I see less and less, or more and more people at least talking about confirmation bias, and the fact that if you ask AI to give you feedback, it doesn't always give you the most critical feedback. There is some kind of agrees with you or provides a completely for like, at least not for very well-known person, or like not specifically very correct data. And I mentioned that myself, I started actually getting back more to Google to like cross-check what's being fed to me, because sometimes it's always irrelevant info. And I think the other point, it's as you mentioned, with the reels, I think it's indeed, like for me, is, I create a lot of content, so it's definitely helps to improve productivity. What I'm a bit worried about is actually feeding, the images, the photos of people, like how much, how many LLMs are actually like being trained on just, at least for me, for sure, you can train a deepfake with so many podcast episodes and be kind of very real about it. But I think like visual, like you're using that data from first the privacy perspective, not a lot of people actually realize that the fact that you're feeding your image, to models like Sora, that actually it helps to on your images, then improve that. Who knows, maybe for someone who creates a fake influencer, it's actually going to be, you and your image that's going to be that, fake influencer. And I think that's more and more, at least a reflection that I personally have, and I hear the talks, about that privacy aspect, and especially for, we discussed it, with Tanya, there are more and more models that start to be trained on the influencer content, and who gets paid for, for, if let's say someone uploads our podcast to ChatGPT and asks to extract all the data, should they pay you back for your insights? But do you think like internally in organizations we'll have, more and more talks about user privacy when building the AI models as well?
Yeah, definitely. And to your point, to your previous point, right? Like if you ever go and try AI or LLMs, my friendly advice would be not to share your personal information with it, or your images, or your, information that you wouldn't want to share with the world with these models, just to be, just to take some precautions around where the data is being used to train, and the misuse of it. And of course, these providers are providing a feature for privacy, where you could turn off your data being used to train the models. However, it's good to be cautious and verify whatever you are supplying to the AI to perform, to be more productive. And as I mentioned, if you are using it for critical decision making where the stakes are high, please verify, and fact check the responses that AI gets there, right? And coming back to the latter part of the question, so if an organization is trying to build an AI model, it's first of all like pretty expensive process to actually train an AI model, right? And when the data is being used to train that model, there is definitely a risk where a customer information, or certain PII, or like sensitive information is either knowingly or unknowingly used to train that model so that it provides like a more contextual responses and more accurate responses. Yes, the privacy concerns are going to rise as LLMs are being used within the organizations, and if the organizations are actually going to train their own models, because these LLM powered models are actually only as good as the data that powers them, which means that if the data is high quality, the model is actually going to be of a similar quality and it's going to provide like more accurate responses. However, there's always a risk of hallucination and providing, as you mentioned, agreeable responses. So probably just trying to agree with you more. But when the data is being used, the customers should also know whether their data is being used to train those models or it's being trained on a general purpose data that probably does not belong to any customer, right?
Yep.
And which means that it's probably a responsibility of an organization to provide visibility into where my data as a customer is being used within the AI landscape of that organization. And it should also provide an opt-in or opt-out feature to either train the data, to either train the models using the data that I provide, or to not train the models. Right? There are various use cases where either you can choose to use that data to be trained or you choose not to use the data. However, as a security practitioner, I will probably err on the side of the caution and say that, hey, don't use my data ever to train. And I'm okay with taking that hit where I'm not getting as contextual response as the trained models. So yes, the privacy becomes essential when the LLM models are used. Now let's talk about the natural expansion of LLM models, which is the AI agents, right? And
Yeah.
the AI agents are sort of like the autonomous unit of LLMs where they perform actions on behalf of humans or systems.
Mm.
And that's where the considerations around identity, access control, logging and monitoring what data is being accessed at what particular time, the principle of least privilege or the permissions that are provided to the AI agents, they become more prominent, right? So it is essential for organizations or for the engineering slash product slash security teams within the organization to ensure that the AI agents have the only those permissions that are needed to perform the job, and those are not like the permissions that are long lasting, which means that either these are like point in time permissions that you get to perform an action. That action is logged, it's monitored, and if there is an anomaly, that is quickly fixed. And it is also necessary for the organizations to never trust AI entirely, which means that when AI gives you like sort of a productivity boost or it tries to solve the problems, there is probably a chance where organizations will start rely heavily on the AI and will start trusting the operations that the AI agents perform or the data that they access, the output that they provide, right? And it is essential to verify the output, which means that you need to build a feedback pipeline where you're either checking the accuracy of what the AI agents are providing as an output, and also you're using the general principle of trust but verify, right?
Yeah.
So that's going to help us ensure that AI is not performing an action behind the scenes that's probably it's not supposed to do. And when you stretch that more into using MCP, right? So MCP is typically recommended to be used with OAuth 2.1.
Yeah.
Which means that now we're talking about permissions that the AI agents will have as a part of the MCP protocol. And it is important to have the principle of least privilege followed there, which means that you do not provide all or nothing permissions. You only provide the necessary permissions to perform the job, right? So you might have seen that I'm repeating these themes of hey, only access what you need to access, log your access, and do not provide more permissions. So essentially, these are the pillars of privacy in while using AI in different formats. So either it's an LLM model or AI agent or MCP server or anything beyond that as well, right? So to put it shortly, just ensure that the identity is correct, which means that only necessary permissions are provided to your AI tool, whatever AI tool you're using. The AI agent actions are logged, they are monitored and acted upon promptly if there is something that is probably not right. So you trust, but you verify.
Okay.
You should also prioritize human oversight wherever it's possible, which means that if an AI agent is trying to perform an action, it is always good to verify those actions by human so that humans can ensure that AI is not actually hallucinating and performing something that is not supposed to do, or there is no prompt injection that has creeped into, from the workflow, and now it is making the AI agent to perform something. So to give you an example of this, if you're considering an AI agent that logs into your bank account, checks the account balance, transfer, let's say $100 to Amol, and then logs out, right? And this is a personal use of AI agents. This is not organizational use. Now there is an MCP server that you will use with your banking system, which it will help you log into the account, or check the balance, transfer it to Amol for like $100, and then log out, right? However, as a human or as a customer, I will just like probably type it in English that, hey, do these 4 steps or so, right? It is essential that I verify those action as an action plan from the AI agent that, hey, I'm going to do these steps, right? So I'm going to log into your account. I'm going to check your account balance. I'm going to transfer Amol $100, and then I'm going to log out. And then I say that, hey, okay, yeah, that looks right. It should not do like, hey, I'm going to log into your account. I'm going to check your balance, and then I'm going to transfer all your money to Amol, or I'm going to transfer $100 to Amol, and then I'm going to make it a recurring payment, for example, or I'm going to transfer more money to someone else, right? So those should not be the cases, which means that you always provide like a human intervention when there is a sensitive operation involved, right? And the humans confirm it. And so once humans confirm it, you know that this is the right action to perform. These are the right steps to perform, and the AI agents go and perform that step. It might not be possible, in a large scale enterprise systems where a lot of AI agents are at play. And of course, there are different strategies to address that. But essentially, this is an example of how you provide a human oversight for trust but verify kind of a situation. And one more pillar, which is sort of a parallel to all these things, is that always verify the privacy regulations and the data regulations in the geography that you're operating in.
That's good for sure. If you're operating with European companies, you have to.
Yes. Yeah. And a lot of countries have their own data locality principles and rules, right? So make sure that you follow as an enterprise those considerations. And I believe those considerations are not going to change when you're using AI or when you're not using AI, right? So please, that's just a request to make sure that if you're operating multiple geographies, or even if you have replicas of your systems in multiple geographies, the data is handled appropriately according to the regulations.
You mentioned the human oversight, and I think before we talked about criticality. Right now, more and more AI is used actually for security in order to automate daily tasks. When is actually we can find right balance between human oversight, because we're not able to verify maybe exactly each task, and how to adapt it to criticality of something. In what cases would you absolutely think you need human oversight, like let's say, I don't know, if a scanner runs scans in a super critical application and gives you results about vulnerabilities, or what cases you would think, okay, maybe in this case I don't specifically need human oversight of the results.
Yeah, I think, that's an important distinction to make here, right? To respond to that, I feel let's take an example of when a junior right out of college engineer starts on your team, right? And then we will slowly evolve into the world of AI, right? So when I was a right out of college fresh security engineer doing pen testing, right? I had like very limited industry experience to internships. So that is for limited time period. And there were these senior engineers on the team, right? Or my new hire mentors, who were actually providing me guidance on what to do, how to perform a particular task. And they were kind of having an oversight on me when I was performing, let's say, my first pen test, or I was like writing my first pen test report, or I was trying to deliver my first talk, right? Which means that what they were trying to do is that they were ensuring that I am capable enough to perform that job with the highest quality output, and they never doubted my capabilities to do that. However, when I say capable enough, they're just trying to see that I am operating well under the context of that organization, right? Because I'm new to that organization. I already have the skills that I've acquired from the school, but to translate those skills to do certain jobs within the organization, there was like certain kind of training that was needed, and that was provided by these senior members of the team, right? And over time, when like I performed my first task or my first report or I delivered my first talk, there was sort of a confidence that was instilled into the team that I was working or the organization that I was working for. Then I started getting more and more responsibilities where I started become more independent and I could take like bigger projects or bigger tasks and could perform them with a similar quality and or even better quality that I would like to believe. And the senior members then slowly reduced the oversight they started having on me, right? So that's how a junior engineer sort of like evolves into a mid-senior senior engineer and like to be sort of a industry expert in that particular area. Now we are also like we can also consider this particular example for AI, right? So now AI agents or LLMs that we are using are probably at the level of junior engineers on the team, where they can perform the job. They have the skills to perform the job. However, there is still a chance where they might not provide the highest quality of the output, right? Which means that there is a human oversight needed, as I mentioned, right? When they perform the job, right? And the output that they perform, that they produce. So coming back to your question now, would you trust a junior engineer in your organization to address like the most critical vulnerability that is affecting the entire organization? Probably yes, but when they are accompanied with a senior engineer or a senior enough member of the team who might not be like, I'm not talking about years of experience here, right? The junior is like someone who's new to the organization. They probably don't know anything about how the organization is operating at that point, right? You would probably have like someone who's more experienced with you within the organization to accompany them, right? So that they learn and then they sort of grow into addressing something of that level by themselves. Similarly, if you're using AI, I would recommend that not just critical decisions. You do not trust any decisions that are made by AI. You have like a member. Now, there is no senior junior concept here. It's just that a member who can, or a human essentially, that can verify the output of that AI, provide that feedback back to the AI so that the AI learns and it becomes more capable of providing a similar quality output should the similar situation arise in the future, right? Which means you're just treating AI as the junior most engineer who has the skills, probably cannot perform the job in the context of the company. You slowly train them to perform the certain jobs, either like certain tasks that humans usually perform it to the highest quality, and then you move towards using them for more and more, not using but like essentially providing them more responsibilities or using them in different use cases, which means that you always have that feedback loop built in and you never trust the critical AI to make critical security decisions. The latter part of your question, right, like which is if there's a sensitive system and if you would use AI to scan it and to provide the output, yes, I would probably use it to scan in a sensitive system and to I will also, of course, verify the output. But when I'm using it to scan the sensitive system, I also want to ensure how the underlying LLM model is deployed, right? Which means that I would not use the general purpose AI model or LLM model to scan like a ultra sensitive system within my organization, because I don't know, like we discussed the privacy
Well, let's hope
risks, right?
not to put the whole code of
Exactly.
the app to ChatGPT.
Right. Which means that I first need to ensure that the LLM that is being used in the organization is deployed with all the security and privacy measures into considerations. There is, the data is probably not being used to train those models, even within the organization, even if the model is local and private to the organization. And then I can probably use it to perform those operations. But I would never trust it to autonomously make certain critical security decisions, especially with respect to triages or like incidents and stuff like that. Right? It can always be like an AI agent for productivity purposes or to for certain low hanging fruits, but never for like the most critical situations where a lot of human oversight is needed.
And actually, it's very interesting that you mentioned for the feedback loop, because what I see in application for feedback loop the best is the bug bounty programs, because within bug bounty programs, it's exactly what you described. Especially right now, there are more and more tools that pop up that where they are able to detect some vulnerabilities, then apply the finding and potentially even integrates based on the feedback from once they filled an application based if the feedback is okay, the finding is correct or not, integrated within their algorithm. Do you think we'll see more and more use cases like that? Do you think this use case in itself kind of is valid? Firstly, find by let's say some vulnerability in a bug bounty, apply it, get feedback from human, implement it in the scanner that's going to be based with
So there are multiple stages involved in this, right? And it's these are sort of the stages that are involved in any traditional bug bounty program. So a bug bounty finding is received by the organization, and there's a triage that happens. After triage, you validate it, and then there is sort of this another triage loop where when you validate it, you know actually what the likelihood is, and then you probably tend to provide that feedback loop to triage to improve it. However, once the validation and the triage is complete, that's when the responsible teams either go and fix it, or there are certain necessary changes that are made, and that particular risk is actually provided as a feedback loop either to your design review threat modeling process, or to your scanners, or to your pen testers internally, right? Essentially to all the phases as well. Now with AI, I think you can definitely automate certain bits of this. For example, if a bug bounty finding is received, the initial triage can be done by AI, right? On what the risk level looks like. For that, it is important that the AI understands the context of the of the organization or the application that the bug bounty finding is reported into, which means that you need to have a model that is local to the company. It is trained on certain risks that has previously been seen, and it has a feedback from all the other areas that happen pre-bug bounty, which is like threat model, or your scanners, or your pen tests, and etc. Right? So it learns and it performs the initial level of triage. It kind of can validate that as well, only if you trust that AI model to take a look into your code and see whether that risk truly exists or not. Which means that again, we are coming back to the same concept of the AI model should be trusted. It should be local to the organization. So for triage, yes, AI model, AI or LLM can definitely help there. For the fix, I would never trust AI unless there is a human oversight there, which means that the AI suggests a fix, but it never fixes it, or it can suggest the fix. It can create a pull request as well to make those changes into the code, but there is a human that goes and verifies that, right? Or there are test cases that are written by humans that could verify those aspects of the code. I would like to believe, I might sound a little pessimistic that I will never use AI for fixing the code. Yes. However, that's just the status quo at this point, and it's just my security mind. So it will surely evolve. I'm sure. I'm hopeful in the capabilities of AI. Coming back to that, once the code is verified by the humans, the fix is verified by the humans, and the fix is merged. Now there is a feedback loop which we were talking about, right? In the word without AI, it is essential that you feed the root cause of that risk, or the fix of that particular risk back into your pipeline of, let's say, the threat modeling, or scanning, or code reviews, etc. You could actually use AI to create those scanner rules, right? That, hey, this is the scanner I use, and I'm assuming that the scanner is commercials. AI kind of knows about it. Right, most of it. So it can come up with the rules, and you could potentially provide the previous rules that you have created for that scanner. So it understands what kind of rules we create, and it can provide you a general purpose rule that, hey, you could use this particular pattern matching, or the scanner rule for your context.
And what kind of AI then you use? Would you ask, I don't know, Claude or ChatGPT to create that, or something like create a ChatGPT bot that's based on that, or would you use again commercial tool, or just something built internally? What would you use in that case?
Wow, yeah, that's going to be, if you would have asked me that a couple of months ago, I would have had a different answer and probably a pretty quick, easy answer for you.
Why?
But now, recently, I've started learning a lot about Cloud Code and also the OpenAI's security. I don't know if it's a bot or a plugin.
Aardvark, the tester?
Aardvark. Yeah. Yes, right. So there's definitely improvements being made in the recent months on how security can be done with AI, right? And there's definitely like this new flavor of models that are coming up that provide more feedback. And I'm sure like these are just a couple of examples that I've come across, but there are multiple other examples that can be used to perform a similar sort of in order to provide that feedback. Yes, there is like one part of feedback where it's just like, hey, this is a rule that you create and then you add it to your scanner or you add it to your threat modeling methodology or like your pen test or test cases, etc. There's other world that is emerging with vibe coding, with Cloud Code, with Aardvark, and all the other tools that you could actually build these test cases, so to speak, into your pipeline using these models, right? And for example, the Cloud Code also has like this the security testing feature, right? So you could potentially add like I'm not sure if it currently allows you to add like a newer rule in there.
I don't know. I honestly don't know to be able to.
Yes.
It's something I should look up.
Yes, it's definitely something on my list too. But like having some tools of these kinds, right, that help you provide feedback proactively instead of like reactively will definitely help us. And there is another, as I mentioned, the vibe coding is definitely a different world of developer productivity where the code is being written at the speed of light essentially, and there is a way where you could build these sort of an underlying principle for your vibe coding platform that, hey, use these particular paradigms while you're creating the code, right? Or like stay within these boundaries and stuff like that. However, again, you can't trust the code that it generates, so you have to verify it. But you can also use these platforms like Cloud Code or any vibe coding platform to see or like to identify similar patterns of the risk elsewhere in the code, which means that it's now giving you have like something that understands English and has access to your entire code base locally, right? So you still have like a little bit
Oversight.
Oversight and confidence there. And I'm also assuming that your organization is putting efforts to ensure that those platforms are secure and necessary precautions have been taken. So you could use that to identify those patterns elsewhere in the code, which means that now it provides you an opportunity to do variant analysis at scale, or like to see like occurrence of similar risk across the applications, across multiple code bases. And more efficiently. I remember when I used to initially do these kind of analysis, like after seeing a bug bounty finding, I used to like go into like one particular code base written in one particular language, and I used to try to find that pattern manually. Then I used to go into other programming language, and now you have to change the consideration because the other language might be written differently, right? And it uses a different programming constructs. So now you have to use like a different kind of a pattern and a mental model to find that risk, occurrences of that risk in that code base, right? But now with vibe coding, you should just write it in English that, hey, this is the risk that I've seen, and like, this is like how it's been exploited in this one particular area, or this is like the fix that I've made. Find opportunities to make similar fix into these other code bases as well, and it can provide you certain response, the answers, and I think to your question, coming back to it, there's no particular like one size fits all answer, right? It just depends on what your investments looks like into AI and like what you can use and what your it just what your appetite is, of course. Like that is also another consideration to be made here. And personally, I feel you can use AI to stretch your creative boundaries and like just create more and more use cases. By the time this episode comes out, probably we might have seen like a couple of more tools coming in and that you're solving the problems entirely for us. Yeah.
I think for sure it's gonna change. I mean, now it's towards the end of the year. People will calm down, with Thanksgiving, Christmas, and so
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
But we'll for sure see a lot of different developments because they're in right now, like it's every week. So there is one question I always ask on the podcast as well. What do you think, apart from AI, I guess, is the most overrated buzzword that you think exists in security?
In security. So I still feel that is not a buzzword. Of course, it is being used everywhere, right?
Depends who you ask.
Depends who you ask. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And definitely the people that I interact with outside of work definitely may see this that hey, AI is buzzword for Amol because he's always talking about certain things that can be solved with AI, and why don't you use AI for doing mundane things? However, I also feel something that touched as a buzzword in technology touched security but never really landed and stayed with security is big data. And no one really knew what big data was, right? Like everyone just had like, if you're working with data, they just like started calling it big data. And of course, there is a meaning to it, and there's a field of big data, so to speak, where different verticals, and it's sort of a stream in itself. However, that's like one of the buzzwords I've come across where this is going to be this can be solved using big data. This is a problem of big data, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I need to understand more there. But yes, now it's being taken over by AI. Earlier it was, before that it was Web3, crypto, and everything was crypto. Now things are changing.
Yeah, I think AI, it's changing by AI because it's a bit easier, to understand for general audience than Web3 or big data. Because when I even talk with my parents now, who are like, 60 years old, they understand what is artificial intelligence, on a higher level, obviously, but they hear it, they know what it is, what ChatGPT is, and how they can do that. And it's, while I think if I ask them what Web3 is, they would not really be able to explain that. And I think that's also one of the reasons. I say for similar for big data because they don't work in tech.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think that's what you can see. Yep. Thank you so much, Amal. For you wanted to add something?
No, no. I was just saying that if these buzzwords are actually making technology more accessible to the population that do not have access to technology, I think they're serving their purpose. So I'm glad that AI is a buzzword and it's actually reaching the population that otherwise wouldn't use like that part of technology ever.
I think from technological advance perspective, it definitely creates more opportunities and opportunities for everyone. I think it was like several months ago, there was like a very old gentleman who actually created a website. I think that was lovable, and which would never be possible.
Yeah.
Before. Thank you so much, Amal, for coming on the show. It was a pleasure chatting with you, learning from you, and this was very fun.
Thank you for having me. It's been fun. As I mentioned, AI is going to solve a lot of problems for us, but while you use it, please be careful. Do not overshare your information with it, and hope it makes humans more productive.
Well, hope it will without the errors that come with it.